Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Friday afternoon, or at least where I am, it's Friday afternoon, chat with Phillip, answering one of our viewers' questions. I'm Diana Rankin, and we are having a heat wave. Suddenly, summer appeared in my neck of the woods. We went from frost one day. I said I had the furnace on one day and had to turn the AC on the next. And I don't like turning the AC on this early in the year, but it helps us sleep at night. So, anyway, we have a question from one of you. And I am starting to come on a little bit earlier. It worked so well for you last week, and we had so many join us live that I thought, well, maybe this is a better time for you. So uh, hopefully, I'll see some of you come on live today. Our questions, let me first of all say this is the 21st. See, I have to have my calendar. Isn't that beautiful? The calendar. But this is the 21st week of 2021, and it is May 23rd to the 29th. May 23rd to the 29th. Boy, May has just gone zip by for me. I'm kind of assuming that may be true for a lot of us. And that means I'm going to have to get June predictions out sometime this coming week, or sometime the week that this is, which for me is the coming week. Sorry, I've got a hair in my eye here. Anyway, we will also get a message from Phillip. This is for those of you who aren't familiar with the Master's Book of Answers by Phillip. It's an oracle book. We just open to any page, and each page has a different wisdom on it. So we'll get that at the end of our message here. Our message or our question this week, and thank you for sending in your questions. You can either email them to me or you can put them in our comments below. The questions, I ask that they be of a general nature. I am going to be setting up soon, I promise. I know I've said this before, but I will be doing some Zoom sacred circles. And what sacred circles are, you will get private messages in the sacred circle. Now, you'll get private messages in the group, but you can ask very personal questions in sacred circles. We begin with a meditation. We have a message or a story, and we have a meditation, and then I give personal messages to everybody in the group. You can ask a question, or you don't need to have a question. And if you want to talk to a loved one in spirit world, we will also do that. So we are working on, we'll probably go live with the new website in the next couple of days, hopefully, before I've still got some work to get to the webmaster on that, but we will get that done. And then we'll go forward with that. And so let's go forward with today's message or today's question. The question is, how does self-love or lack of it impact our ability to connect with our guides, angels, and others on our spirit team? Well, as always, I think I have the answer. And then I hear Phillip and it goes deeper. And I'm always appreciative of your question because I always learn something. So here's what Phillip has to say about that. Any study, such as that which you teach, that addresses working with spirit, allows self-love to develop. This said, we must also state that there must first be at least the desire for self-love before a human will seek to learn and heal those of us who are here to guide. Let me repeat that. Any study, such as that which you teach, that addresses working with spirit, allows self-love to develop. This said, we must also state that there must first be at least the desire for self-love before a human will seek to learn and heal from those of us who are here to guide. Working with a spirit guide or spirit healer requires a belief in self and the ability to be heard by the human self. And that belief in self with a big S, to be heard by the human self with a little s. This requires the human to accept responsibility for themselves rather than turning over their life compass to another person or organization or even a train of thought. By this, we mean the individual must be accepting of thinking for themselves and follow a moral code based on spiritual love. Love seeks no harm. Love seeks to unite. Love seeks to bring joy and well-being to all. Repeat that. Love seeks no harm. Love seeks to unite. Love seeks to bring joy and well-being to all. This is a moral code that is not easy to follow. It often sets people aside from a group. This is not to say people are not part of a group. No, not at all. It is to say they may need to seek out those they wish to be with, having little patience for those who must have another dictate to them their life code. That's pretty strong. Phillip goes on to say, to simplify the answer to the question, let us say that to work with a spirit guide, one must at least have the desire of knowing, love with a capital L, and that begins with love for oneself. Self-love begins with recognition of the one's own self, the spiritual being you are. And again, that self is capital S. As you gain understanding that you are a spiritual being as well as a human being, self-love develops. As self-love develops, you are better able to forgive yourself for what you perceive as wrongdoings. Understanding of self opens, which brings with it the desire for growth, help, and teachers. This desire will bring forth openings and opportunities for connecting with your teachers, guides, and healers, both in spirit world and human world. As we have said, all it takes is for the desire for self-love to begin the spiritual journey. This may come from a feeling of need to grow, or it may come from a crisis. The origin of the desire to know self better is of less importance than is the desire itself. It is the longing to know self with a capital S that brings with it the longing to connect with the spirit guides. This is true even if one does not reach for self-love, but instead thinks they are just wishing to connect with their guide. Your guides are reached through your inner world. Are you not also learning more of self? Of course you are. And does it not then follow that as you learn more of who you are, that self with a capital S, you are that self, as you learn more of who you are that self. Let me reread that. Phillip writes in a very differently than I do, and so I stumble sometimes, forgive me, over the way he's written things. His syntax is different than mine. So here we go. And does it not then follow that as you learn more of who you are, yourself with the big S, you are that self-love will then follow? Of course it does. We have spoken of guides, teachers, healers, but have not included angels. This is because they are of a different nature. Angels are protectors and holders of the energy. By this we mean angels watch over all life, not just human life. Their purpose is to watch over rather than guide or teach, even heal, although they do all by being love. By being love, they are easier to access than other spirit beings for most humans. This is why, regardless of one's religious or spiritual beliefs, one can receive angelic aid. Connecting to the angelic realm is often the first step in self-love, which can lead to communication with others in spirit world. You know, I thought a lot about that sentence, that connecting to the angelic realm is also often the first step in self-love, which can lead to communication with others in spirit world. And when I thought about that, it hit me that as children, most of us almost always connect with the angelic world as children. And we're often taught about angels as children. So even though as adults we may not feel we've connected with the angelic world, I bet as children many of us did. And then perhaps again as adults. Okay, spirit world is not that different from human world in that your mind creates your world. It is more instantaneous in spirit world than in human world. Here, our highest God is love. And like in your world, there are steps that must be taken to reap the privilege of working on a higher level. I want to repeat that one sentence. In spirit world, Philip is talking about. Here, our highest God is love, and love has the capital L. The first step is the simplest and often the most difficult. This is to say to human self, I love you. Simply repeating these words to self allows an opening to begin to self with the big S. Although this may take time in the human realm, once there is a slit, your guides, teachers, and healers will help you to create a larger opening that will, in time and desire and practice, erase any obstacles between you and communication will flow between you and your guides, and communication will flow freely. All right, my friends. Well, sunshine. This sounds exciting. Can't wait. I hope the message was of as exciting as you thought it was going to be. Um, and Vivian, hello, Diana, she says. And she also says, I have just read your book, The Found Child, and liked it very much. So much interesting teachings in it. Thank you, Vivian. And thank you for mentioning that. Let me pull it out here. The Found Child is about a woman, by the way, her name is Diana, who's had a motorcycle spill. Sound familiar? And she finds this strange little boy at the end of her lane, and together they go on this adventure through spirit world and human world, and they go back in time and forward in time, and they do a lot of healing, and there are some surprises in there for you, I hope, as well as some interesting teaching. So Vivian, thank you for mentioning The Found Child. It is one of my favorite books, and I have to go back and reread it because one of these days I'm going to write a sequel to it to see what happens. I do have, just to mention, a couple of other books here. Joy, 52 processes for finding joy in your life. And I'm thank you for those of you who mentioned this book or who are using it. It is a help. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, somebody will remind me, go use your book. And of course, another one of my books is 23 Days, A Celtic Journey. It's a love story. It's about a woman finding herself through disappointment with love, but it also talks about the relationship of love. And it's weaved around Celtic mythology while she's on this 23-day journey with her lover. And it's interesting what happens. But right now, we're going to get a message from Philip, okay? So sunshine, so glad to see you, Vivian. So glad you're here. And for those of you who couldn't join us today, please feel free to make comments in your comments below. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to open to any page. If you heard right, that is the message I'm getting for all of us. So that's the intuition, that our intuition's in sync. If you heard right. If you heard left, pay special attention because that's a message for you that you need to hear today. So on the right, our message, our soul message from Philip for all of us is Beethoven was without hearing, and yet he heard music. Beethoven was without hearing, and yet he heard music. And it always surprises me, and yet it doesn't, how our message from the Master's Book of Answers connects with the question that one of you wrote in about and Philip answered. And we don't, I've been working with Philip excuse me, for years and years and years and years. And it takes practice. When I first started working with Philip, it wasn't comfortable necessarily. And it took many years of really becoming comfortable. And now I have people who study with me who work with Philip, and they will call me and say, is this really, it sounds like his syntax, not mine. Is it really Philip? And yes, it really is. So some of you may be working with Philip. So you don't, as we said in our message, Self-love, if you have it, wonderful. Get going, working with your bigger self. Capital S. If you don't have it, that desire will open. Remember, Beethoven was without hearing, and yet he heard music. Your guides, your healers, your teachers, and yes, the angels are all here. They're ready. It's just us that holds them back. All right. If you heard left, this is a message for you. Even free rent cost. Even free rent cost. Okay, there is a price to be paid. Even free rent has a bill. All right, my friends, I'm so glad, Sunshine and Vivian, that you joined us today. I hope all of you have a marvelous week. I'll try to get on maybe midweek next week to get out June's predictions. And we'll see you then on the monthly. In the meantime, thank you all for the love that you send us. And thank you for loving yourselves as much as you can. That grows. That has to just open. But remember by saying, I love you. And thank you for accepting the love we send to you. Thank you for your prayers for Daisy and for Sophia. They are both doing pretty good. Daisy, I'm amazed at how she's bounced back, especially at her age. And she is bouncing around and running a little bit and even making it all the way down the lane, which is 900 feet to the mailbox. So thank you all. I love you. I'll see you in a few days for our June predictions. And I'll see you next Friday for Phillip's Soul Messages and the answer to your questions. Until then.